Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 743, if I remember correctly, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Monday, September 22nd, 2025, and it's a gray and rainy day here at the Beaver Lodge. And of course, it's a gray and rainy day on a day when I have tennis scheduled. I am not impressed. It's supposed to be little bits of drops just for a little bit, and hopefully it will dry by the time we're supposed to be on the court. But then again, the Weather Network is saying that from about 2 o'clock on for like the foreseeable future, immediate future, that it is going to be rain. Not that we don't need it, but I haven't had a chance to play tennis in almost a week now, so I was really looking forward to today. No, I'm doing other things though. I'm having fun with rehearsals, so A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and Cubs, how is your mental health doing today? Oh, thank you, Kit Sharon. Thank you so much. Kit Sharon loves my shirt today. Says it's a great color for me. Aw, flattery will get you everywhere with the Queen. uh, oh man, no, things are pretty good. A little tired in that um, musicals are hard work, and we're doing this, September, October, first few weeks of November. We go on stage November 20th. So we're doing this in under 3 months, 2 months and a half, which is a pretty fast schedule. And it is 4 rehearsals a week, uh, 2 hours on Mondays and Wednesdays, and 4 hours on each on Saturdays and Sundays. So this was the first 4 hours. So uh, it's it takes a lot out of you. I'll tell you, it's all good. Don't get me wrong. Great people, great vibe, great atmosphere, and everything. But it's a lot of work, melodies and harmonies and dancing and steps. And fortunately, at the moment, no lines yet. But then. Um, remember to move your mouth when you're doing the steps, and then when you remember to move your mouth when you're doing the steps, remember while you're doing the steps and moving your mouth, you're not singing the melody. You're saying it's like, ah, crap. Did that yesterday. We were in the final pose of the first number we're rehearsing, and I'm singing something, and I hear the guy behind me who's in my voice range singing something else, and I'm going, oh yeah. I forgot I'm not supposed to be singing the melody. So it's a lot to remember. So it can be a little exhausting when you get home. So far, the choreography hasn't been so demanding that I'm not sore. But eventually that will come, especially when we're running it over and over and again and that type of stuff. Because we're doing mostly blocking at the moment, which is like determining like where people are going to be when they say things and when action is happening, and and how action moves and all that kind of stuff. So first, we're just we're basically determining where and when we are in space, and then we move to as we are learning the songs and the numbers like this, and then we start putting them together. So it's not run the number over and over and over and over and over again yet until you get it right, and everything looks nice. So then my body might start hurting a little bit, but things are going very well, and we already had a first cast party actually over the course of the weekend, which was nice. So a little kitchen party and a fire pit in the backyard, and a little singing and that kind of stuff. So it's a good group. So I am feeling very good with that, even though I am a little tired because it just it changes. All of a sudden, I am adding uh, uh, 12 hours in terms of rehearsals to my week that I had time to do other stuff with. And then, of course, at rehearsal is not the only time you rehearse, right? Especially if you're trying to get harmonies down and that type of stuff. So it's a sizable chunk out of the week. So I'm getting used to the adjustment of having to be much more efficient on everything else. And it's also, uh, it has me wondering in when October, when curling starts, and I'm doing all three, and for about 2 months, uh, um, what my quality of life will be. I may have bitten up a little more than I could chew, but hey, it's fun. I mean, I'm gonna get to dance. I'm gonna get to sing. Uh, you know, it's it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. It's problems I like to have. Let's put it that way. All right. In other news as well, closing in on 25,000 subscribers, that will put you in a good mood. As Kitlin and said, Yowza 24.9, so that's good. And also, Kids and Cubs, your Royale with Cheese, Queen Beaver, is going to show a little ankle, leg, and even some mid thigh here. Because yesterday we received an email that an interview guest that we have been looking to have on the show for a very long time uh, uh, talked about it and mused about it, um, but never actually pursued it because there's just no way in hell that was going to happen. And then through an exchange on Twitter at one point, uh, this person's name was mentioned, and we got a response to a tweet. They interacted with our tweet, and then we floated the through that interaction. We floated the idea, and there seemed to be some interest. Said you follow up with my people, but often when you follow up with people, sometimes nothing happens. And we did follow up, and nothing happened. And then we tried again at one point, and nothing happened. And then I thought, well, you know, we are sort of cold sending an email to a certain address. And I thought, it could be that our invitation went straight to junk mail, right? The first time we sent it, turns out it wasn't to the right place. It was we sent it to an address where it could have gone, but it wasn't the actual publicist that could help us secure this. So the second time when we didn't hear anything, we thought, well, maybe it went to junk mail, or maybe, just like a lot of stuff came in. We found out the other day that an interview guest to whom we sent an invitation had actually responded in the affirmative. We never actually saw the email come in. It was like, oh, crap. We had to write back, said, we're so sorry. You slipped through the cracks. So, it could have been something like that. So we tried again. And yesterday we heard from them, and we said it, it appears to be a yes. Now we haven't finalized a date and time for it to happen. So, and for me, it's not a yes until it's actually recorded or delivered, until it actually happens. Uh, but it's we're at the point where we're negotiating date and time. So it's looking good. And I am really excited about this one. This would be by far the biggest get we have ever had on the show in terms of interview guests and caliber and public impact and that type of stuff. So pretty excited about it. And I'm sorry I can't tell you more at the moment because I don't want to jinx it. So until it's actually booked or in the can or anything like that, I won't announce the guest. But yeah, said Olga Nestorova the other day, and now this person. We are. Uh, we're having some good luck, is what I will say. But it made me very, very happy indeed. When the possibility of it came about, I was already floating. And I went to my beaver sweetie and I said, like, if this happens, this would be really, really major for us. And then, like, nothing happened. I was like, oh, darn, oh, well, too good to be true, I guess. But turns out maybe not. And turns out persistence pays off, perhaps. So, yeah, I am in a great, 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 great mood today because just good things have been happening. And I hope good things have been happening to you too, kids and cubs. And I'm sorry to be so, well, I'm not actually sorry to be a big tease because I kind of like being a little bit of a tease. But But this one is more like, I don't wanna, like, make a big it would be like and for those of you who are wondering, it's not the prime minister. So, but it would be sort of like me saying, like this, okay, like, we've been trying to reach out to the prime minister and all that kind of stuff. And, like this, okay, we got a yes. And I don't wanna say on the show, "Hey, we got the prime minister. We're talking to the prime minister's office." Like, I just right? Because then if it doesn't happen for some reason, that's like, "Yeah, yeah, you just said it was to get that attention, the click." So we're until we actually have it. Ah, but yes, it would be, like I said, the by far the biggest get we've had. I think probably the biggest interview I could say we had. I mean, we had Senator Brazo and we had Susan Holt when she was leader of the opposition before she became premier, but she did become premier. So, you know, that's pretty, it's pretty major. Colin Hodgson was pretty big interview. Sujith Verghese was pretty big interview too. I mean, one of the guys behind Fraggle Rock. Like, come on, man, that's huge. So, we've had some pretty big guests, but this would be, um, um, this would be exponentially bigger. That's all I can say. Like, I'm not pulling your leg when I say it would be the biggest guest. All right, enough teasing for now. I might tease more later on a couple of other shows. Uh, but yeah, really, really great mood here. Okay, let's get into it, kids and cubs. So, see, I'm in such a great mood that the fact that there might not be tennis actually uh, does not have me down. That's how good it is. All right. Yeah, right, Kid Jared loved Fraggle Rock. Oh, yeah, before we get into it, let's just do a quick magic monitor first here. Kit Tabby G saying good morning and celebrating being the first one. Woohoo! First time as the first as well. Kit Tulane is saying good morning, everyone. Kit May Hem is here. Just smile and wave. When in doubt, just smile and wave. Uncover the News is here saying morning and morning to you. Thank you so much once again for everything you do for us. Very much appreciated. Kit PNC Bio is here saying good morning. Good morning to you, sir. I hope you are doing very well. Who else do we have? Grace is here saying good morning. Ah, that's wonderful. Kit to Linda M. There we go, celebrating our success there, saying wowza. Who knows? Maybe I'll hit 25,000 during the show. You never know. We have Kit Sue again joining us. Good morning to you. Welcome to the Beaver Lodge. So glad you're here. Kit Sharon is here as well, saying good morning, my fabulous DAMFAM. Kit M also liking the choice of pink for me today. It really is. It kind of brings out the bronziness in my skin, and it really highlights with the salt and pepper of the beard. Yeah, This is actually is a pretty good color on me. See, I was so excited, I actually brought out my best tennis shirt. There we go. All right. Ah, everybody, you are so kind today. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you, Kit Taviji. Yes, I didn't get the part originally, and then they called me because somebody had pulled out. Like I said, I was on the wait list, so they did like the audition, and turns out an opportunity arose. So, yeah, it's like I said, this is one this is a director that does a lot with the ensembles, which is fun. So I mean, ensemble acting is very, very, very different than front acting, right? Because you know, you might have a line here or there, you might have an interaction with the main character here or there, that type of stuff. Like and or there might be a song where there's a vocal part like one line or something that comes to you solo, or a dance part where you get like a feature or something. So there are opportunities to stand out, but it's different, right? Now, most of the other times you're trying not to pull focus, but just like create some type of environment, and and then the extra bodies for the big production numbers and that type of stuff. So it's a different type of acting, and a different type of challenge. And some musicals, um, use the ensemble really just as props and more for and some directors are able to actually give the people in the back a lot to do in that sense. So I mean, and this is the type of director that's like that. He always is always seeing the full scene in action and moving. So if they're doing that, what's happening behind, what's happening to the left, and so there's always something going on. So and we usually help with transitions too and that type of stuff. So it's actually a lot of fun. It's not just standing. And sometimes even if you're not on stage, some people don't know this if you haven't done musical theater, but sometimes when you're not on stage, because you're mic'd, you might be backstage in the wings and you're still singing to add color and texture to the songs under, even if you're not on stage. So that happens sometimes too. And then there's a whole what we call the backstage ballet. There's a whole choreography backstage too, in terms of people coming out and coming in and being in the right place and whatnot. So there's a lot to remember. We're busy. We're very, very busy as an ensemble. So it's going to be a great time. It's really going to be a great time. So, but thank you, because I really did win. I did want in this show specifically because it's the music and style of dancing that speaks to me. So when it's like, oh my God, they're finally doing like a more older school musical, like just please, 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 and I got the no. I was like, oh, so bummed out, but it all worked out. But thank you for sharing in my joy. Okay, let's see who else. We got Kid Bucky with us saying good morning, all. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Get Toronto Dan is here. I hope things are going well. Rain. Dan doesn't go door to door. When is the vote, Dan? Let us know. There's by-election in Toronto, and Dan is helping with one of the candidates' campaign. So just wondering when that is, because I believe there's some voting. Oh darn! Is it in? No, no. There's a town today in Canada that's having a municipal by-election vote today. I saw the news, and I can't remember the name of the town the town or the city off the top of my head. All right. We have Kit Hugh here. Woohoo! Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And also, because we usually announce it. Well, I will. Well, I'll let if Hugh wants to announce it, I'll let him announce it in the chat. But Hugh might either today or soon will have an announcement for you here, kids and cubs. I'm setting you up there, buddy. Who else do we have here? Nona Carol is here saying good morning and good morning to you. Uh, Oh, yes, and that's true. Yes, congratulations. Uh, uh, Kit Hugh has some good news on the employment front potentially as well. So sending you some good vibes there, sir, for the result that you would like in that. Okay, who else do we have here? Whoops. in the chat, in the chat, in the chat. Did I get everybody? No, Kit Jillian is here saying good morning. So is Kit Jenny. Good morning to both of you. And oh yes, some praise from Kit Linda saying I could listen to Olga all day. Wasn't that a great interview? I was really, really proud of that one. Again, surprised that we were able to get her as a guest and that she gave us so much of her time. And but then just the sheer amount of knowledge she dropped. She is she is something else. Like I said, hopefully we'll be able to have her back. But yeah, she was so kind. She was so kind off camera. You know, when things are not rolling, just so genuinely kind. That one was a joy as well. So I was very eager to present it to you, and I'm glad you liked it. Kit Toronto Dan confirming it is a nice color shirt. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. You guys are great today. And we have Kit Kat here saying morning, Elaine and everyone here. Kit Moan here. Good morning to you and good morning to family. And who else do we have? Who else do we have? Kit Cassie is here today. Hey, good morning to you. Hope you and the cowboy are doing well. And let's see. And that is everybody under coming in under the wire there for some good mornings and some chat. Hey, look at this. We've just been yammering on here. Let's get into it because we got some stuff to discuss. Um, there is some big international developments. There's this little thing going on in New York at the the United Nations. I think there's a General Assembly or something like that going on. And of course, the Prime Minister is there. And there's, uh, of course, the big it's not really a secret because it's been telegraphed. But the big news is that Canada is going to, or probably already has, but it's going to make it a big deal here uh, at the session that they are officially recognizing the state of Palestine as a state. And Canada is not alone in this by any stretch. Uh, there are several nations that are planning to do this. Uh, so can't far from alone in this. But what is significant is that Canada is the first G7 nation to be recognizing a Palestinian state. But France is with us. United Kingdom is with us. Australia is with us. Belgium is with us. Luxembourg is with us. Malta, Portugal, New Zealand, San Marino. I don't actually know why they're saying that Canada is the first. I don't know if it's because we're speaking first or anything, because it's not like France and the UK are not a G7 nation as well, or unless since we're all recognizing at the same time, I guess we are the first, but then probably more proper to say among the first, right? Or in the group, in the first group of G7 nations to recognize Palestinian statehood might be more accurate since we do have some colleagues in the G7 who are doing it as well. So yeah, states big and small. Some people will go, well, who cares about Luxembourg and San Marino and Malta? Well, every nation has one vote, right? So they matter. And but yeah, we are not alone. And with the United States, Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, um, and added New Zealand there for some reason. They keep on they don't mention them when I'm reading this, but they're talking about like the Commonwealth countries, major Commonwealth countries getting together, and they mention UK, Canada, Australia, but forget that New Zealand is also there too. So four of them Commonwealth countries. So sending a sign there as well that there's some solidarity here. Um, it's a big move. It's a big move. The president of Australia, or prime minister, I should say, of Australia, president. Oh my God, I've, I've, everything is so about Trump and Putin all the time that everything is just president, 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 right? It's like, no. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said, effective today, Sunday, the 21st of September, 2025, the Commonwealth of Australia formally recognizes the independent and sovereign state of Palestine. In doing so, Australia recognizes the legitimate and long held aspirations of the people of Palestine to a state of their own. Australia's recognition of Palestine today, alongside Canada and the United Kingdom, is part of a coordinated international effort to build new momentum for a two state solution, starting with a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of the hostages taken in the atrocities of October 7th, 2023. Today's act of recognition reflects Australia's long-standing commitment to a two-state solution, which has always been the only path to enduring peace and security for the Israeli and Palestinian peoples. The international community has set out clear requirements for the Palestinian Authority. The president of the Palestinian Authority has restated its recognition of Israel's right to exist and given direct undertakings to Australia, including commitments to hold democratic elections and enact significant reform to finance, governance, and education. The terrorist organization Hamas must have no role in Palestine. Further steps, including the establishment of diplomatic relations and opening of embassies, will be considered as the Palestinian Authority makes progress on its commitments to reform. Already, crucial work is underway across the international community to develop a credible peace plan that enables the reconstruction of Gaza, builds the capacity of the state of Palestine, and guarantees the security of Israel. The leadership of the countries of the Arab League and the United States is vital to this task. Australia will continue to work with our international partners to help build on today's act of recognition and to bring the Middle East closer to the lasting peace and security that is the hope and right of all humanity. So that was a statement by the Prime Minister of Australia with regard to that. Um, wondering, if you're wondering, of course, what the Prime Minister of Canada had to say about that. Well, of course, I am going to present that to you, kits and cubs. Um, but this idea of coordination here, right? Now, part of that has, safety in numbers, strength in numbers, because, all three of us, well, all 10 of us really, in that group, but if we're talking about the three major ones, Canada, United States, well, I mean, even France. France is major. See, it's hard to describe it as a group, but all 10 of us, whether we be small nations or larger nations, all have to deal with the United States, and the United States is unabashedly in the pro-Israel camp here, even for all the times that Donald Trump has said, well, I don't like what Bibi's doing. Well, that's the same thing he says with Putin. I don't like what he's doing. Putin's disappointing me, but ultimately there's never any consequence. Donald Trump just says that he's not happy, he's displeased, and Putin and Netanyahu both show just how impotent Trump actually is on the world scale, right? If he actually did any intend to intervene. If he's not intending to intervene, then, this is just all, performance art. No, Donald Trump says he's mad at Putin. Let's kill a couple of trees and write lots of articles about that. But ultimately, it's like, is Putin really disappointing Trump, or is Trump just saying this because, well, he's saying it will, get his name in the press for a while. But I mean, if he's not disappointed to do anything about it, then he's not really disappointed, or he's compromised, right? Maybe when they came out of that room in the Australia, not Australia, Alaska summit, and everybody had those allegedly ashen faces, and they were allegedly, it seems, word on the tweet. I can't confirm it. I don't know. Shown a video, and what was on that video? Maybe that was something on the video that would keep someone in line if they decided to get a little too uppity and think that they can flex. Perhaps. Maybe. I don't know. Just spitballing. Prime Minister of Canada. Since 1947, it has been the policy of every Canadian government to support a two-state solution for lasting peace in the Middle East. This envisioned the creation of a sovereign, democratic, and viable state of Palestine, building its future in peace and security alongside the state of Israel. Over many decades, Canada's commitment to this goal was premised on the expectation that this outcome would be eventually achieved as part of a negotiated settlement. Regrettably, this possibility has been steadily and gravely eroded, including by the pervasive threat of Hamas terrorism to Israel and its people, culminating in the heinous terrorist attack of October 7th, 2023, and Hamas's long-standing violent rejection of Israel's right to exist and a two-state solution. The accelerated settlement building across the West Bank and East Jerusalem, while settler violence against Palestinians has soared. Actions such as the E1 settlement plan and this year's vote by the Knesset calling for the annexation of the West Bank. The Israeli government's contribution to the humanitarian disaster in Gaza, including by impeding access to food and other essential humanitarian supplies. Hamas has terrorized the people of Israel and oppressed the people of Gaza, wreaking horrific suffering. It is imperative that Hamas release all hostages, fully disarm, and play no role in the future governance of Palestine. Hamas has stolen from the Palestinian people, cheated them of their life and liberty, and can in no way dictate their future. The current Israeli government is working methodically to prevent the prospect of a Palestinian state from ever being established. It has pursued an unrelenting policy of settlement expansion in the West Bank, which is illegal under international law. Its sustained assault in Gaza has killed tens of thousands of civilians, displaced well over 1 million people, and caused a devastating and preventable famine in violation of international law. It is now the avowed policy of the current Israeli government that there will be no Palestinian state. It is in this context that Canada recognizes the state of Palestine and offers our partnership in building the promise of a peaceful future for both the state of Palestine and the state of Israel. Canada does so as part of a coordinated international effort to preserve the possibility of a two-state solution. While Canada is under no illusions that this recognition is a panacea, this recognition is firmly aligned with the principles of self-determination and fundamental human rights reflected in the United Nations Charter and the consistent policy of Canada for generations. Recognizing the state of Palestine led by the Palestinian Authority empowers those who seek peaceful coexistence and the end of Hamas. This in no way legitimizes terrorism, nor is it any reward for it. Furthermore, it in no way compromises Canada's steadfast support for the state of Israel, its people, and their security. Security that can only ultimately be guaranteed through the achievement of a comprehensive two-state solution. The Palestinian Authority has provided direct commitments to Canada and the international community on much-needed reforms, including to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada will intensify efforts to support the Palestinian Authority's implementation of this reform agenda, on which progress has already been made. With our international partners, Canada supports the development of a credible peace plan, democratic governance, and clear security arrangements for Palestine, and the sustained large-scale delivery of humanitarian aid into and throughout Gaza. And that was the Canadian statement on it. There is always going to be instant negative reaction from some quarters to this type of move, and there was one of the main sources of instant negative reaction, of course, is the Conservative Party of Canada. Also, clearly all in with the Netanyahu administration whenever they talk about there also needing to be peace in Palestine or not bad things happen to Palestinians. It's really just super soft pedaled and lip service type thing. But it's they always revert 100% fully into the pro Netanyahu camp. And there is some interaction of the sort online. One of them that struck me as rather interesting came from Warren Kinsella. And he had a couple of things to say that struck me as very interesting framing. So he wrote, Canada recognizing Palestine, A, rewards Hamas. We specifically say here in our thing, it's like this is not rewarding Hamas, but Don't let having to create contrast get in the way of a good narrative. Uh, B, convinces Israel that compromise is a waste of time. And C, it gives Trump's another pretext to go after us. So fucking stupid. So just negative, negative, negative. Everything's terrible, right? And Thomas Juneau, who you might know of if you are watching political programs, because he's often um, brought on as a guest. He's a professor of the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Ottawa, with a focus on the Middle East, Iran, Yemen, security and intelligence, and a former Department of National Defense analyst. And like I said, you often see him on CTV and the CBC. And to the point of uh, recognizing Palestine rewards Hamas, Thomas Juneau responds, the point of recognition is to support the Palestinian Authority, the only plausible peace partner, however flawed, against Hamas. B. Convinces Israel that compromise is a waste of time. B. I doubt Israel really needed convincing on this. Ouch. C. Oh, and C. It gives Trump another pretext to go after us. Yes, on this one. It might be the best argument against Canada's recognition. Based on those two, for me, when I'm reading A, Canada recognizing Palestine rewards Hamas, it's like utter bullshit, and it's a tired pro Netanyahu media line. B, convinces Israel that compromise is a waste of time. Hasn't that been Netanyahu's thinking all along? Really? And C, it gives Trump a pretext to go after us. And it's like, yes, that's a concern, but if we're going to start soft pedaling, having an independent foreign policy because we don't want to upset the mercurial toddler, then why the fuck be a sovereign nation? We can't do this because Trump might retaliate. We can't do this. Well, then why exist as Canada then? If we can't do anything, we can't have our own thoughts, our own actions, our own positions, whatnot, for fear of what he might do, then we might as well just be annexed, right? We can't live in fear of what it is he might do. That's just the silly way to go about being a country. So, um, these are the easy things. When you have to oppose, either because your position or your paycheck depends on it, and you really have nothing, or you have nothing better, right? It's going to do the opposite of what it says it's going to do, right? It's going to ruin any possibility of peace, and bad things might happen to us. That could be the response for any policy. It's going to have the opposite effect. Bad things are going to happen to us if we do that. And it's going to make anybody we need to work with to make it happen not want to work with us. You can use those three excuses to do a mindless opposition to any move. These are the places you go when you have nothing or you have nothing better. It's weak. It's convincing in the sense that, depending what's going on in the world, right? The third one gives Trump another pretext to go after us, and it's not like he's not going after us, and it's not like he really needs a pretext either, because I mean, the way that he's going after us now is kind of unprovoked. Um, you know, part of me is like, it gives us a pretext to go after us. like the fucker needs a pretext. you know, it's like, and and that doesn't mean, go waving the red flag in front of the bull and trying to get its attention, which is why we're probably doing this in numbers. Um, but right, if you don't do the right thing because you're afraid that somebody else is going to do something bad to you, that's obeying in advance. You know, And as one of the only nations that actually stood up and imposed counter tariffs, I don't think that we're in an obeying in advance kind of mood. So coming up and saying, "Oh, it gives Trump another pretext to go after us," like, so right? At this point, so I I don't understand this conservative mentality of like, no, 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 no. Like this, while at the same time they're the ones that saying you have to negotiate from a position of strength. Well, how are you going to negotiate from a position of strength if you don't even show that you have your own voice? I just don't understand this cowering mentality. I guess, and it's like, is there any conservative that really, truly, honestly believes that that with Netanyahu in charge, that current government in charge, with that extreme, extreme right wing element, that's even not even letting Netanyahu like breathe for a quarter of a second, that there's any any reality or dimension or galaxy in which it's going to be possible to achieve either two-state solution or any type of peace so long as they are in the game. Because if you do, I got some primo oceanfront real estate on the northern border of Saskatchewan for you to sell, to buy. Good prices. And for you, we'll make a special deal. Oy. Right? There's absolutely no evidence. So, negative backlash. Of course, negative backlash as well from the government of Israel, clearly not happy about it. And some concern, however, uh, not so much concern that it's, uh, the way that it's formulated in Statement B by Warren Kinsella, that it convinces Israel that compromise is a waste of time. You would have to believe that there is a compromise other than you give us everything we want and maybe we won't kill you, keep killing you as the compromise, right? But according to Joseph Krauss of Associated Press, there are some other legitimate, more legitimate, let's say, um, reasons to see possibilities of um, this type of push for the recognition of Palestine, a Palestinian state, backfiring in terms of getting one. This is so, like I said, Joseph Krauss of the Associated Press. France and Saudi Arabia hope to use this year's gathering of world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly and the increasingly horrific war in Gaza Strip to inject new urgency into the quest for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Those efforts include a new roadmap for eventual Palestinian statehood in territories Israel seized in the 1967 Mideast War, and moves by several Western countries to join a global majority in recognizing such a state before it has been established. Britain, Canada, and Australia formally recognized the Palestinian state on Sunday, joining nearly 150 countries that have already done so, and France is expected to follow suit at this week's General Assembly. But the efforts to push a two state solution face major obstacles, beginning with vehement opposition from the United States and Israel. The U.S. has blocked Palestinian officials from even attending the General Assembly, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is opposed to Palestinian statehood, has threatened to take unilateral action in response, possibly including the annexation of parts of the West Bank. That would put the Palestinians' dream of independence even further out of reach. The creation of a Palestinian state in East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza has long been seen internationally as the only way to resolve the conflict, which began more than a century before Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attacks sparked the ongoing war in Gaza. Proponents say this would allow Israel to exist as a democracy with a Jewish majority. The alternative, they say, is the status quo in which Jewish Israelis have full rights and Palestinians live under varying degrees of Israeli control, something major right groups say amounts to apartheid. Israel must understand that the one state solution with the subjugation of the Palestinian people without rights, that is absolutely intolerable, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said last week. Without a two-state solution, there will be no peace in the Middle East. Peace talks launched in the early 1990s repeatedly faltered amid violence and the expansion of Israeli settlements aimed at preventing a Palestinian state. No substantive negotiations have been held since Netanyahu returned to office in 2009. Israel annexed East Jerusalem, considers it part of its capital, and has long encouraged the growth of Jewish settlements in and around Palestinian neighborhoods. The occupied West Bank is home to over 500,000 settlers with Israeli citizenship and some 3 million Palestinians who live under Israeli military rule, with the Palestinian Authority exercising limited autonomy in scattered enclaves. In Gaza, Israel's retaliatory offensive has killed tens of thousands of Palestinians, displaced some 90% of the population of 2 million, left much of the territory inhabitable, and pushed some areas into famine. A new offensive threatens to empty and flatten the largest Palestinian city. Netanyahu's government and most of Israel's political class were opposed to Palestinian statehood even before the war. The Trump administration has shown no interest in reviving peace talks, instead calling for the relocation of much of Gaza's population to other countries, a plan Israel has eagerly adopted, even as critics say it would amount to ethnic cleansing. Perhaps hoping this is a darkest before dawn moment, France and Saudi Arabia have advanced a phased plan to end the conflict by establishing a demilitarized state governed by the Palestinian Authority with international assistance. The plan calls for an immediate end to the war in Gaza, the return of all hostages, and a complete Israeli withdrawal. Hamas would hand power to a politically independent committee under the auspices of the Palestinian Authority, something it has already agreed to do, and lay down its arms, which it has not. The international community would help the Palestinian Authority rebuild Gaza and govern the territories, possibly with the help of foreign peacekeepers. Regional peace and integration, likely including Saudi normalization of ties with Israel, would follow. The 193-member world body approved a non-binding resolution endorsing the so-called New York Declaration earlier this month. The United States and Israel say that the international push for a Palestinian state rewards Hamas and makes it harder to reach a deal to halt the war and return the remaining hostages. I call bullshit. The Gaza ceasefire talks broke down when Israel carried out a September 9th strike targeting Hamas negotiators in Qatar, one of the main mediators. The U.S. had walked away from the talks in July, blaming Hamas, and Israel unilaterally ended an earlier ceasefire in March. Israel also says that creating a Palestinian state would allow Hamas to carry out another October 7 style attack on an even wider scale. Hamas leaders have at times indicated they would accept a state on the 1967 lines, but the group remains formally committed to Israel's destruction. Netanyahu portrays international recognition of Palestinian statehood as an attack on Israel. During a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio last week, Netanyahu said, quote, "It is clear that if unilateral actions are taken against us, it simply invites unilateral actions on our part." Netanyahu and his far-right coalition partners have long wanted to annex large parts of the West Bank, which would make it virtually impossible to establish a viable Palestinian state. The U.S. is not taking a public position on the issue, but in an interview with Fox News, Rubio linked, sorry, pardon me. Oh, the screen just jumped because an ad appeared in the middle and shifted everything. During a meeting with Secretary of State Marco, okay, yes, I already read that part. There we go. The U.S. has not taken a public position on the issue, but in an interview with Fox News, Rubio linked this conversation about annexation to the issue of statehood recognition. The United Arab Emirates has called annexation a red line without saying what effect it might have on the 2020 Abraham Accords, in which the country normalized ties with Israel. The French-Saudi plan sidesteps the most divisive issues in the conflict: final borders, the fate of the settlements, the return of Palestinian refugees from past wars, security arrangements, the status of Jerusalem, and recognition of Israel as a Jewish state. It also relies heavily on the Palestinian Authority, the current leadership of which is despised by many Palestinians who view them as corrupt and autocratic. Israel says they are not fully committed to peace and accuses the Palestinian Authority of incitement despite recent reforms. The plan calls for Palestinian elections to be held within a year, but President Mahmoud Abbas has delayed previous votes when it looked like his party would lose, blaming Israeli restrictions. Hamas, which won the last national elections in 2006, would be excluded unless it gives up its weapons and recognizes Israel. all of which means the plan is likely to end up on the mound of past Mideast accords, parameters and roadmaps leaving Israel in full control of the land from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, ruling millions of Palestinians who are denied basic rights. So yeah, uh, and not an unlikely scenario. However, uh, going so far as to claim or to suggest that this is the move that would do it, when it seems more likely um, that this was the desire and the plan all along. Um, Often, um, in certain situations such as this, um, when somebody has something that they do want to do, and then they know what type of opposition they are going to have to it in order to deflect responsibility or blame or to create some type of fig leaf of uh, permission or extra urgency, they will frame the expected response as being some type of provocation or something that someone else has done that created the conditions that made it so that you had no other choice. Um, but this is done, uh, it's either planned or it's done after the fact in order to create these permission structures or rallying cries. You don't, you're not comfortable with me doing this, but because all these other countries don't want us to do it and might, deliver some consequences, you know, you don't want those consequences, right? So, you don't want other people sticking their nose in our affairs. So maybe you're more likely now to, that might be the extra little push that we need to get you begrudgingly over to our side. Uh, so yeah, uh, if you're going to do something that is absolutely horrible, if you can find a way, or if somebody does something that you can then take and say, well, see, well, we got no choice now. Um, that often comes in uh, very handy, but it is um, opportunism, definitely. And if it's pre-planned, because normally in this sphere, you know you can calculate for what the reactions there's an expected reaction that you're going to get, and you can say, well, when this expected reaction comes, we just deflected by saying this. And yeah, that is another way about it, unfortunately. And it's a rather common practice too, sadly. um Now, there will clearly, of course, um uh be other things going on here at this event. Wondering why I'm having so much difficulty here with something. I'm trying to open an article here, and it's still um, temperamental. There we go. Let's see. That might work here. Uh, there'll be other things going on as well. This is not the main thing, the main or only thing going on at this at the United Nations. There are lots of bilateral meetings and stuff of the like. The Prime Minister has already had some time to meet with I think it is the leaders of Namibia. And then I believe there are some meetings as well scheduled with the leaders of Kenya, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, what I'd read, and there was another nation as well. Here, according to iPolitics, the prime minister had a back-to-back tete-a-tete with United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Namibian President Netumbo Nandi Nitawa. And then Prime Minister Carney will start his day on the diplomatic circuit that traditionally accompanies the opening session of the United Nations General Assembly by outlining his foreign policy priorities during a live streamed chat with Council on Foreign Relations President Michael Froman at 12:15. He will then make an appearance at a high-level summit on the recommendations that emerged from the International Conference for the Peaceful Settlement on the Question of Palestine and the implementation of a two-state solution at 3 p.m. And yeah, there we go. He'll also meet separately with his Turkish and Kenyan counterparts. Meeting with a Turkish counter with Erdogan should be interesting because that's a NATO partner with a very sizable military. And there may be other things to be discussed with him specifically. So that could be an interesting situation there. Um, there is some news going about that the prime minister is rather uh, sought after as well at the event with several people, uh, more than several people. That would be underselling it. Uh, requesting some of his time. Uh, so things that we've been hearing from Pierre Poliev, for example, that the prime minister is an embarrassment and doing things terrible, and might be ruining things for us. Uh, that doesn't seem to be the impression of him uh, on the international stage. Um, which is good for us. It's one of those things that I've said about the prime minister. Um, it is that he does have a certain convening power, which, given his past success, which could be very useful to us in the negotiations and the moves that we have to make, uh, to diversify our economy. But this is according to Tana McCharles, the Ottawa bureau chief from the Toronto Star. More than 700 requests flooded in from foreign leaders, CEOs, company representatives, and other groups who want to meet up with or invite Prime Minister Mark Carney to attend events in New York City on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. So when we say things like a politician's most valuable asset is their time, 700 requests. He's only going to be there for a short while. Quote, that's a lot like speed dating, says Senator Peter Boehm, a former ambassador and international summit Sherpa for several prime ministers. It's a number that surprised even the prime minister's office, which would not comment but acknowledged some 30 leaders and CEOs have sought meetings. A senior government source who was not authorized to speak publicly told the Star the invitations have come from all corners into global affairs, the UN mission, and the PMO, and are a deluge amid an already packed UN agenda. It signals international interest in Carney and Canada's views, almost a whisper that Canada's back rather than a declaration, said pollster Sachi Curl of the Angus Reid Institute. But is that core to Carney actually keeping his own political house in order? At the same time, she said Canadians are starting to show Carney the honeymoon is over. In fact, in Canada, you can make the argument that there really never was a honeymoon, but more of a very cordial and warm handshake, Curl said. I, I'm not buying this. Carney, quote, never had the kind of swooning, hot-flushed honeymoon that Justin Trudeau had with his approval numbers in the 60s and 70s. The best Mark Carney has done since February of this year is 57% approval. That's not bad, she said, but he's not Mr. Darcy, Jane Austen's romantic hero. He's Mr. Carney, and people have expectations that he must deliver. Canadians were prepared to give him the summer to begin to make good on his promises, but Curl says in the last 4 or 5 weeks, probably since the retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. were dropped, Canadians are now evaluating Carney with a colder and more critical eye, even as the global glow is still on. In New York, Carney's UN agenda includes talks on Canada's and others' recognition of Palestinian statehood, which Carney previewed in July and formalized Sunday, how the world will meet its climate targets, and another priority for Canada, a focus on Russia's treatment of Ukrainian children captured in the war zone. Senator Boehm understands the Carney draw. Quote, certainly there would be a lot of people who would want to meet with him for a couple of reasons. He has an international profile. He is still the chair of the G7 because Canada has the presidency till the end of the year, said Boehm. Some want his advice on global markets, the bond situation, that sort of thing, adding there's a natural curiosity for newcomers on the international scene, just as there was for Justin Trudeau at first. When Trudeau burst onto the global political scene after 2015 electoral upset, there was a wave of excitement in his early international travels. He had celebrity cachet in large part because of his political heritage, son of former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, but was an unknown quantity to other international leaders. Carney, however, is a known quantity. He starts out with a reputation on the global stage and knows several international leaders personally, including G7 and G20 heads of government from previous posts at the central banks of Canada and England, the Global Financial Stability Board, and the UN as a special envoy on climate finance. He and French President Emmanuel Macron knew each other from banking circles, said a diplomatic source. Carney had known UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer since his days as a vocal opponent of Brexit, the campaign to take Britain out of the European Union. When Carney was in Rome for Pope Leo's inauguration in May, he racked up a string of pull-aside meetings and bilateral chats, including with Italy's Giorgia Meloni and and at sorry, let's try that again. When Carney was in Rome for Pope Leo's inauguration in May, he racked up a string of pull-aside meetings and bilateral chats, including with Italy's Giorgia Meloni and at June's G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta. A string of 18 world leaders took up the invitation to travel to Canada, where U.S. President Donald Trump attended the Carney-hosted gathering. See, it was a G7, but 18 world leaders. That's why I was saying in our discussion with Olga that it seemed like it was like a mini G20 in a way. The UN General Assembly will be Carney's biggest international confab, however. Carney was in Mexico last week to meet with President Claudia Sheinbaum to become better amigos as the U.S. levies hefty tariffs against key sectors in both countries. Sheinbaum's more arm's length approach, not traveling to Washington and not levying counter tariffs, has worked thus far for her. Carney, who boasts a close talk-text relationship with the unpredictable American president, has eased off on Canada's retaliation and made concessions on digital taxes in a bid to do a deal for Canada. The jury is still out on who is best at handling Trump, and it's not clear what lessons the Canadian and Mexican leaders learned from each other or what lessons Carney has to share with the world. And that is the article by Tonda McCharles on the Prime Minister being in a certain, 700 requests, my word. How do you sift through them, especially like it says, right, when your agenda is already packed? You think, okay, I got this stuff. I got a little window here and a little window here, a little window here. Maybe I'll meet 2 or 3 people. What, 700 requests? Holy crap. Hope he's got a good team sorting all that out. But yes, definitely some of this could be the fact that he's in a new position. But like the article clearly points out, it's not like Mr. Carney is a novelty on the international scene. So, odds that this speaks to his convening power, how sought his opinion is specifically on certain matters, particularly related to global finance, might have a lot to do with it. So again, once again, while Pierre and the Conservatives are trying to pretend, that we've got an empty suit, a guy that has a great reputation but can't get it done. As a prime minister, so far, international view of the prime minister seems to be anything but that. Seems to be like somebody that they want, whose time they very much seek and desire. All right, kids and cubs, moving away from this for now, because I'm sure there will be developments. Um, let's see, what else have we got for you today? At the episode description to remind me what it is I said I was going to talk about. Ah, yes, key players switching jobs. The look of cabinet and government is changing. As we mentioned on the show on Thursday, which unfortunately got clipped on YouTube, if you had been watching it live with us, we got into the fact that Chrystia Freeland is announced that she was stepping down from cabinet. A lot of people ran with that, thinking, "Oh my God, are we going to have another by-election now? Oh my God, I can't believe we're spending all this money." And it's like, really, you guys in the blue seats are like complaining about spending money on a needless by-election? Really? Like at this particular point in time, because you think we've already forgotten, right? Seems that there will not be a by-election according to iPolitics, at least for now. It seems that Chrystia Freeland will remain in caucus, will keep her seat as MP, will serve out her full term as MP, so she says, and but will not run in the next election after that. And the prime minister, she, realizing that she's probably not going to be prime minister, and since the prime minister is, the godfather of her child, her son. You know, probably not too eager to push him out. Uh, and she's had all the jobs, so there's probably not much of a challenge for her. So it seems that she and the prime minister were talking, and he's come up with a position to make her Canada's special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine, which is something for which she is tailor made and would be a passion project and something that she could work on, and that would indeed boost our standing international relations, particularly with Europe. And at the time that we're trying to, make closer ties. And again, is there anybody in Canada, potentially even in the world, who's better suited for that type of position? I don't think so, and it's something that's dear to her heart. So it definitely makes use of the best skills that she has, and of course, creates a spot in cabinet if should she decide to leave caucus early. Let's say, after 2 years of doing this, um, there's a position in, maybe Secretary of the General of the UN, or, head of the Commonwealth or something like that, that opens up. Um, that might be the type of place that she's looking to next. For her next level, because she has all the stuff. I mean, right? She can speak 5 languages, and I think, or something like that. She has all the stuff that's needed for that type of post national political career. She could do international politics very easily. So maybe she's, like I said, making her transition to that realm, and this is a perfect stepping stone for that. This would be a good thing to have on the resume as she's moving up in that career. So let's say 2, 3 years from now, rather than completing the full term, there's something that opens up. Well, that does create a by-election opportunity in a safe seat for the prime minister to maybe be able to run somebody that he would have liked to have had run in the past election. But it's like, every prime minister has a core group of people that they really trust, that they try to bring in with them. Um, and the turnaround time may have just been too fast, so like, I can't leave now. But maybe they might be able to leave in 5, 6 months from now. So you get a couple of MPs or cabinet ministers who have been there for a while, 10, 12 years, set them up for the next phase of the career, like as an ambassador, or support their bid for a multilateral position in a multilateral organization. And when that seat opens up, well, then you know, you have your person come in, and then they run, and relatively safe seat, and they come in, and then you give them the position. So with this has been the case for Christopher Freeland. Now we have also found out that David Lametti, who had been justice minister at one time, and then got dumped from cabinet, and then left caucus and didn't run in this election, and then was brought in to cabinet, not to cabinet, but brought into the prime minister's office to have a special, specific job to help with the prime minister. And seems that there might have been a little butting of heads, that the person who currently, the best I can sort of gather, is the person who currently has that job, um, didn't necessarily not want to have that job anymore. Did I say that right? The person who currently has that job did not want to not have that job. Put it that way. And it seems that, well, Lemedy and Mark Carney are friends. I believe they played hockey together at Oxford, if I remember correctly. So it seems that we found another place for Mr. Lemedy, which is taking over Bob Ray's position as permanent representative at the United Nations. So all's well that ends well there. And that's a little tiny little bit of headbutting drama. The other one that's been talking about is Bill Blair, probably leaving, and appointed to a High Commissioner of the United Kingdom to replace Ralph Goodale, whose term is coming to an end. And there's also some talk of Jonathan Wilkinson, who was our natural resources minister for a while, and I think uh, something again having to do with was it I can't remember what the other position was, but it's similar area, sort of like natural resources or energy, that type of stuff, and very much an advocate of green solutions, being sent over somewhere in Europe. I'm not sure if it would be to as ambassador to the EU to replace, I think it is Stefan Dion, who's there now, or in another position as a special envoy, maybe in some type of way. But they're looking at him as well. Um, Now, David Lametti had already left government, but Bill Blair, Christopher Freeland, Wilkinson are still there. So there are a lot of people with names and recognition who have done a lot of good over the last while who ran in this federal election, use the power of incumbency, make sure you secure the seat. But right, they know that this type of government is going to be different one, and there's no place for them uh, in cabinet in the same way as it were before. So again, this gives them an opportunity to leave on their own terms, to leave, gracefully, and again, makes it look like a good, good endings, right? Yes, thing you've been in cabinet, whatnot, for the last 10 years or stuff like that. You've gained some gravitas, and now we want you to use that gravitas to go be our high commissioner or our ambassador, our permanent representative, our special envoy for this, to head this committee or this commission, that type of stuff. And hopefully that position gives you the visibility and whatnot that you can use as a platform to go to what you go to next, and then make your career outside of elected politics from that point on. So uh, it's a good way to leave people with good feelings, right? Rather than just being unceremoniously dumped, for example, from cabinet, which also creates then the opportunity, like I said, to have by-elections where you can strategically bring people in. So basically, over the next while, and I don't know how long it's going to take because we're not running a by-election at all for what Christian Freeland is doing because she's staying, and he didn't bring in a new minister. He divided her portfolio between two people. So Dominic LeBlanc will be taking the internal trade portfolio to go with what he's already doing. And Stephen McKinnon, who's the government house leader, will be taking the transportation minister jobs. And I joked on the show for those who missed it, thus proving that it takes two men to do the job of one woman. It does change the gender parity balance a little bit, but there's not bringing anybody in, and because Freeland's leaving, there's no by-election. So, Lametti is not in cabinet. When Bill Blair goes, you know, there might be an opportunity and need for a by-election there, and if there's a couple of other people that go as well, if Wilkinson goes and maybe somebody else, those by-elections will probably be bundled and all called at the same time, and they'll probably be in relatively safe seats. And then we'll see who the Liberal candidate is there, and then you'll probably start to get a sense of what it is that Carney's real cabinet, the one that he really wanted for himself, the type of cabinet he would have gotten if he had a year and a half to prepare for the election, rather than just being elected leader and then having to go right away, leader of the Liberal Party, and then having to go right away. So that face, who is Mark Carney, what type of cabinet, what type of inner circle, that is changing. There has been a lot of critique that it's starting to look a little bit more like a boys' club, and wondering about his commitment to, uh, you know, to women and gender parity and that type of stuff. And as a counter to that, though, a lot of people have been pointing out to the fact, well, the head of the major projects office, Don Farrell, is female. The head of the Build Canada Homes initiative that he has there, Miss Blau, I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right, also female. So, you know, those who are trying to frame him as maybe having a woman problem, um, if we're looking to other appointments, maybe not. But Monsieur Bachan, Monsieur Sabia in his inner circle, and then there's Mr. Lametti, who's now leaving, but his parliamentary secretary, his personal parliamentary secretary, Scotty Blua, another guy. A lot of people are wondering, again, but also in the cabinet shuffle, he did give Mélanie Joly the position that she had wanted so that she can, burnish her portfolio, having an economic file, having, under her belt. Right, and, she is someone that people see as, potential leadership aspirant when the next leadership race comes along, and he put her in a position that would help her gain the experience that she would need to run for that, if that is, the case. So, the jury's still out, but people are asking questions, about whether or not, there is um, a a gender issue, with this prime minister. I see enough evidence on both sides, to say, like, yes, this could cause to ask a question, but clearly, if he had an actual problem, uh, you know, why are these people, not men as well? So might still we might still be at the point yet where there's not enough data points yet to tell, and a lot, will be determined by the people that he would bring in to run in those by-elections, should they come up eventually. Like I said, uh, it's not that he doesn't know any successful women that he obviously admires and respects, because, like I said, two of his major political promises, he just put women in charge of them, right? So it's not like he doesn't have the contacts and he doesn't know people. So in that sense, like, for example, if he brings in 3 men, especially if he brings in 3 white men, 'cause, people might ask a question. But if he runs a group of by-elections simultaneously, and there's a mix of people, uh, then that will probably put that question, to bed, hopefully. Because people are wondering a little bit if that's the case, because there is some vibes out there that it might be uh, just a little too bro-ish coming in, and just, like I said, people are wondering, asking questions. Now, there is a legitimate part to asking that question, because again, you do want the diversity of voices, right? And you don't just want the diverse voices being in the lower tiers. You want, all throughout an organization. That's what really makes it stronger. um, but there's also, we saw with the last previous government, anytime there was somebody had to be let go for performance, or for cause, and the person happened to be female, there was always a chorus of conservatives ready to scream "fake feminist," right? So again, some of the chatter could be wedge positioning, politics, contrast drawing, and some of them can be coming. There is enough there for some people to ask or wonder, "Hey, is this something I should be concerned about?" So, but probably not enough data points at this point to tell. But yes, the face and the look of government is changing, and I would say that we, mm, in a certain amount of time, might be getting a better idea of what is the actual face of this particular government as it is led by Mark Carney. It's going to shift a little bit as people switch seats, and people change jobs and get moved around in the public service and in the diplomatic corps and various other types of appointments, in order to be able to create that which uh, the team that the prime minister will feel the most confident going forward with, for the foreseeable immediate future. All right. Let's see, what else do we have for you today, kits and cubs? Oh, yes, yes. Uh, I know you guys really don't like it when I say that there are PP clips coming, because his voice really annoys you. Uh, and it does. I get it. I understand you. I listen to him a lot. I'm fully with you here. Um, Pierre Polyev uh, gave another utterly disastrous interview over the course of the weekend to CTV, also a network that he had not been appearing on, it seems, for a while. He was also on, I think he was also on Talking to Rosemary Barton lately as well, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and take a look at that. Um, he is bad at this. He is really bad at this. Um, in this interview, several times, several times, uh, Vashi Capellos, she prepared very well for this in a way that I appreciate. And yes, Kitlinda, I am definitely agree with you here. It's not the voice, it's just that it's the same thing with Skippy every time. Nothing ever changes. And this interview really made that clear. Um, it would seem that Vashi Kapelos had the questions that she wanted to ask, and she had a little more time because they did it as part one and part two. And if I'm looking at time counters, I got 16 minutes on the first part one and then about 10 minutes on part two. So, she had a significant amount of time to ask him some questions. Uh, so she had time to ask the question, pretty much expect what Pierre would say because Pierre is nothing if not predictable. Because as Kit Linda M says here, again, it's the same thing every time. Have a rebuttal or some facts that she had pre-checked ready so that she could counter him like this, and then see how he would respond to that. And pretty much every time he fell apart, like really fell apart. And it's not like he lost his cool or anything, but if you've been following him, um, there's like either no attempts to answer the question or being so off balance that he reverted back to his comfortable tropes. Yeah, like I think at the last question or around the last question, he was once again talking about, uh, living under a proud flag on a safe street or something like that. And it's like, dude, that was your stump speech. You are so rattled that you strung some words together until you got to a place where you could create an opening to resort to a stump speech that failed you in the past election. It was terrible. Um, she nailed him on pipelines. Him saying, Northern Gateway, well, that was killed by liberals. Well, no, really, it was judicial decision, and the liberals decided that they were not going to appeal it. Right? And Energy East, that was killed by liberals. Well, not exactly. They're, still trying to pretend that nothing is happening with oil, but she's Bashi Kapil pointing out that there's more oil being produced than ever. Now, how do you explain that? And one of the parts where she really got him um, was on his ability to explain, uh, to be able to be a sound voice on matters of the economy, given that he had made the promise, Pierre had made the promise that all we need to do is get rid of the carbon tax and that food would be much more affordable. That did not prove to be true. I think I mentioned on a previous show, people were going like, "Hey, what the hell?" Well, it seems Vasi Kapelos did, "Hey, what the hell?" on this, and Pierre got flustered. And in this interview, also interesting that Pierre's traditional "how many" trick, how many, how many, how many. Um, she basically asked it to him about cuts to the public service. How many jobs must be cut or how much money must be cut? I said, oh, well, we need to cut in the billions. Yeah, how many billions? How many jobs? How many kids? So, and it's funny that when how many is being asked to him, he is no better at responding to the question than the people are when he is doing it to others. Um, so yeah, there's part of me that would like to show you the whole damn thing because it's a very not for Pierre, but for the journalism because Vashi came prepared. We're at a point now with Pierre, given we know that what he's going to do, right, is asking him a big, flowery, loaded question is not the type of things we need more like sort of like Tom Mulcair prosecutorial style questions that are direct, knowing what his answer is going to be and having the rebut to his prebut, you know, in there, and asking the question there and going after him. But just asking the question and not having anything prepared to put back in his face or to say how he's wrong, like this, and then asking the following question with that uh, is not something the journalists have not yet picked up on it. But Vashi Kapelos did this time around, uh, and watching it, it was just like it was satisfying because I always suggest, you should ask the same question again until you get it and see what happens. You get your answer and see what happens because, you can stall for a little. You can try to run out the clock for what, but after that, after you've tried those 2 or 3 tactics, if somebody's still coming back with the same question, you have to say something if the journalist isn't moving on. So yeah, she held his, yes, exactly, Kit Kat. I wish a lot more journalists would be like Vashi. Now, Vashi gets a lot of criticism as well. There are plenty of times she drops the ball. But this is the first time that I've seen a journalist with him on a one-on-one situation like this, press him like this and put in his face things that were wrong, or that were untrue, or that were contradictions. And there are a couple of times even where Pierre just sort of like, um, she was saying, interrupting him and saying, putting up the stuff like this. And then he would just sort of find a few connecting words and then continue on with one of his stump speech or rehearsed wrote bits of 3 or 4 lines that he uses and that he just takes out of his pocket and uses handily without even addressing anything that she mentioned whatsoever. He was flailing something fierce. So I want to show you the bit with regard to carbon pricing because this is she presses him. She presses him, and in a good way. And this is something I definitely would like to see more of. So, pre-apologies for voice, but do not listen to it for his voice. Listen to this for how he is answering the question and how she presents him with an actual fact that blows up what it is he is saying. This, and then how he tries to recover. All right. Just making sure I got you with me here. Yes, I do. Okay. Let's do it.
Question period. Before the break, we brought you part 1 of our conversation with conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Here's part 2. Why should Canadians watching right now treat you as an authority on the subject when for so many months, just on the economy more largely, you told them that if the carbon tax was gone, food prices would go down? The carbon tax has been gone since April the 1st, and food prices continue to rise.
Well, first of all, I was right about the carbon tax. Everyone now agrees after demonizing me for so long that I was right about the carbon tax, and imitation is the highest form of flattery. But you know what I have to say is even more incredible is that Carney has been able to over his increased government spending, which is staggering. He's doubled the deficit in 6 months, has flooded our economy with printed cash, which is ultimately causing inflation. Now, it is true that the CPI is lower than it would otherwise be. And everyone agrees, all the economists, I think even the Bank of Canada, that that is because of the carbon tax. You're welcome. But when you flood the economy with hundreds of billions of dollars of extra printed money, as Mr. Carney is doing, you cause inflation in every other area of life. And what really worries me is that once the carbon tax elimination rolls off the monthly inflation measurement early next year, we're going to see really high rates of inflation. We're already seeing it in the core readings. We're already seeing it in the food prices that are rising 70% faster than the Bank of Canada's target, with 4 million visits to Toronto food banks. Mark Carney is doing the Justin Trudeau inflationary spending on steroids, and I'm very concerned this is going to cause serious human suffering.
But the statistics around inflation show that even food inflation from the first month after the carbon tax was cut outpaced regular inflation. The promise you specifically and your colleagues made to Canadians was food prices would go down if the carbon tax is eliminated. That didn't happen. Why should you be treated as an authority more largely on what the government should do on the economy?
Well, I'll tell you why I should be treated as an authority on this one, Vashi, is because I said that Carney would only suspend the carbon tax before the election and then bring in a new one after the election, and that's what he's doing. The fuel standard, the Canadian fuel standard, that he's bringing in.
That was in existence already.
But it's rising every year, and it is going to get to 17 cents a litre. According to the parliamentary budget officer, what was the old carbon tax? 17 cents a litre. So just as I predicted that he would bring back a carbon tax, he is doing that. And we don't know yet exactly what the impacts will be on food prices, but we can be sure it's a lot. Because whenever you raise fuel prices...
But what you said didn't happen. I have to respectfully challenge you. I take what you're saying about the clean fuel standards, okay? But you didn't say, oh, but there will be the clean fuel... You said, if the carbon tax is gone, food prices are down.
But he's brought in a new carbon tax.
But he didn't. It was already in place. That policy set existed when you were making those comments.
Right, and it's growing. And it's hard to keep track of all the liberal taxes. There's so many of them. It's like, which one are we talking about? But this is another 17 cent a litre tax. And as I said, whatever benefit that Canadians got from the elimination of the carbon tax, Mr. Carney has obviated. He is nullified with massive new money printing deficits that are even worse than the ones that Trudeau left behind.
Is there no way in the world to justify any of the extra money that he is essentially dealing with? And I'll tell you how he framed his own comment last week about a more substantial deficit, I think is what he said. Increased costs to deal with the economic impact, like supports for people and sectors that have been very hard hit. I think we can agree, like, the tariffs are out of his control. I mean, to the degree that the president had decided the level of them. And the second impact is just simply from the tariffs themselves and the compressive factor that has on revenues for the government. Like, wouldn't you be dealing with the exact same situation?
Very differently. So why would the trade dispute have required he increase spending on consultants by 37%? This Liberal government under Mark Carney is spending the equivalent of $1,400 per Canadian family on consultants. That's more than a 100% increase. He said he'd spend less on bureaucracy. The cost of the bureaucracy is up 6% year over year. He's adding more bureaucrats. He's increasing foreign aid, sending our money out of our country at a time when we don't have enough here at home. He's giving more money to fraudulent refugee claims and corporate welfare. None of those things were imposed on him by a decision by a foreign leader. These are decisions he made at home. They would have been irresponsible had there been no trade dispute. They're even more reckless now because we can least afford to waste money when we're confronting a serious dispute with our biggest trading partner.
He has intimated that there will be some sort of adjustment to the public service. To be fair, during your campaign, you also said there would be cuts, but didn't detail to what degree they would come. How much should the federal government cut the public service, to be exact?
There needs to be billions of dollars of reductions in the federal bureaucracy, and we need to cut the consultants in half. So he should cut the budget for consultants by at least $12 billion.
And what about the budget for public service workers, which right now is at $71.5 billion?
Well, we should reverse the cost of the bureaucracy back at least 5 years to the pre-COVID era. I mean, how is it that we were able to deliver all these services 5 years ago with 40%, 30% less bureaucrats and less bureaucratic spending. We don't need more bureaucracy. We need to leave money in the pockets of entrepreneurs and workers who will generate the real growth for our country.
What do you say to people who hold those jobs, many of whom used to be in your old riding, who will be a factor in the new unemployment rate, who have to look at their families when losing their jobs and figure out a way to support them?
It's very difficult, and of course right now the reality is that we're in a liberal jobs crisis. The unemployment rate is skyrocketing. Since Mr. Carney became Prime Minister, 86,000 people have lost their jobs. The answer to that, though, it surely cannot be to build the bureaucracy. I mean, if a bigger bureaucracy was going to make for a good job market, then we'd have the best job market in the world, because Liberals have done nothing but spend on bureaucracy and government consultants. What we need is private sector employment. We need businesses to hire more people, giving them paychecks, producing things, goods and services that the country needs. And unfortunately, that's going to be tough. I made the decision to be honest about people during the election. Mr. Carney once again pulled a bait and switch.
Well, to be fair, you just said that there'd be cuts. You didn't detail the degree to which you would.
We did actually. I don't have my platform in front of me, but we did have the dollar figures that we plan to save. I think it was
$56 billion
right.
is what your total was, but you didn't break that down.
We did break it down by public service, consultants,
so how many thousands of Canadians should lose their job in the public service?
Hundreds of thousands of Canadians should gain their jobs, should gain jobs. And that's what we will do when we get rid of the capital gains tax on businesses that reinvest in this country. When we cut taxes on workers, they spend more at local restaurants. When we approve more projects free in the resource sector, all of those welders, pipe fitters, carpenters, though not only employ themselves, but then they spend at local hotels and restaurants, creating even more jobs. I'm proposing a boom in job creation. That is what our Conservative plan is, and we encourage the Liberals to adopt it.
And I take your point on all that. And with respect, my question was how many public servants should lose their jobs, not how many private sector jobs should be created.
Well, it's a combination of the two, and you know, we still have some time before the next election when you'll see our platform.
Well, maybe you never know.
You never know.
It's a minority.
I'm better at predicting the past than the future, but I appreciate your impatience. You're asking the right questions, and I can tell you you'll have the right answers before you go voting in the next election. Our job right now as official opposition is to signal the direction, which is we need less money for bureaucracy and more money for taxpayers and job creators.
One more question on another vote that you're going to face.
All right. So wanted to show you that bit because closer to the end, this is after 20-something minutes of questioning that was like that, insistent and pressing, and you could see that she was prepared. I don't know how much it was. I don't have my platform before me. Well, I did it. I looked at the platform. It's $56 billion, you said. Right? So she was ready for him. Now, you can see how that passage of interview was terrible, right? She's asked, why is the original question at the beginning is why should anybody consider you some type of authority given that the thing that you were said pretty much for 2 years every day. So all we need to do is just cut the carbon tax and all of a sudden everybody will be able to eat and you won't have to choose between food and your rent and those lines at the food banks will be gone and all that type of stuff, right? It's like, he didn't say that the lines at the food banks would be gone, but that's what he was saying. Like everything that was going wrong was just that damn fault of the carbon tax, and if we can only get rid of that. And then you could turn and he starts, right? Well, you see, I was right. Everybody says I was right. No, nobody said you were right that we should get rid of the carbon tax. What people acknowledge is that you made the issue so damn toxic that it was no longer politically viable, so it had to go. The fact that you made something that was good so politically toxic that it had to go doesn't mean that you were right that it had to go. It just means that you made it undeniable that it had to go because nobody could survive politically supporting it anymore because you poisoned it. And then you say, well, before I was demonized, you weren't demonized. You had a stupid position and people were telling the unflattering truth about it, and you for holding it. If you didn't want to be demonized, you just had to pick a better position and maybe not be a dick about it. And then, so, right, I was right and I was demonized, me being the victim. But Mark Carney, blah, 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 blah. No, the question was, why should anybody trust you? I was right. Everybody said I was right. Nobody did. I was demonized. Nobody did. Just pointed out that your idea was dumb and stupid. But Mark Carney, no. Doesn't have an answer. Starts talking about printing cash and whatnot. Government doesn't set monetary policy. That's the Bank of Canada. And Mark Carney hasn't been Prime Minister long enough to put out an order for the Bank of Canada to print cash and that the Bank of Canada to do it in such a way that would affect the economy. None of this thing that he said has happened. Then he goes into the lower CPI and whatnot, and like this and which the lower CPI. Everybody's saying it's a result of the carbon tax. Yes, we've said it on the show. The fact that the carbon tax came out has lowered the CPI. Yes, but we also said on the most recent show that the benefits from that carbon tax was reduced in April. We are in September. Because the prices are about the same as they were in April. And that is already diminishing. The impacts of that is already diminishing. And he goes, "You're welcome." For what? For what are we welcome? That the idea is that if we stopped charging carbon tax, that it would have an impact on the inflation rate. Well, yeah, if you make something cost less for a little bit, it's going to have an effect on the inflation rate. But the point is does it have a permanent? And did it reduce the cost of food? Well, it didn't. And that's where Bashi Campalis came back and says, yes, but if you look at the very first month of inflation data after the carbon tax came out, the price of food hadn't gone down. In the first month, when there should be the maximum impact, it didn't. Inflation went down because the price of gas went down. But the price of food did not become more affordable. Not sure what Pierre is talking about. Then he's talking about, well, all that inflationary spending from Carney, whatnot, made the inflation rates rise everywhere else. Well, no, according to the data that we showed you just last, I think it was last week, inflation, housing inflation, while it's still high, unlike food inflation, is decreasing and is now decreased. It's lower than food inflation. Food inflation is at 3.4. Housing inflation is at 2.6. 2.6 down from 3. Is overall, the overall mean inflation is lower. And the governor of Bank of Canada said the most recent month data, not annualized, but if you take like the last 3 months or something like that, inflation is lower than the core, lower than the average. So inflation and all other things is actually decreasing. But Pierre is saying that it's the opposite. Like we the Bank of Canada just delivered the numbers a couple of days ago. And Pierre is saying that the numbers are opposite of what they are. Then she comes back to the question, why should people consider you an authority? And then you get the stammering and the nervous laugh. I guess. And then he tries his other bullshit line. This. That, well, you see, I told you he was only going to suspend it temporarily and bring up another one. And then he talks about the Canadian fuel standard. But I thought that carbon tax 2 was the industrial carbon standard, Pierre. The last month and a half, when you've been talking about carbon tax 2, it's been the industrial carbon tax standard, not the Canadian fuel standard, which you have talked about. And now you're saying, oh, well, now that's going up to 17 cents a liter, which is the same thing. But as Vashi Kapala said, the Canadian fuel standard has been in existence for a long time. Okay, it happens to be going up this year to the same amount that the carbon tax was, but we had the Canadian fuel standard amount and the carbon tax amount. At the same time, the fact that the Canadian fuel standard is having its scheduled increase that happens to bring it to the same numbers the carbon tax means wants doesn't mean that the Canadian fuel standard was just introduced over the last 4 or 5 months by Mark Carney and brought in at the same rate as the carbon tax, so as to nullify it, as he's claiming. He's outright lying. This for Pierre is carbon tax 3, not carbon tax 2. But he's presenting it as an equivalent to carbon tax when it's something that existed and was already priced in. We were paying the clean fuel standard on top. A lower than 17-cent one. I don't know, maybe it was 13, maybe it was 14, who knows? But we've been paying the Canadian fuel standard for quite a while. um, I should probably, go out and look that. I'm gonna look that up after the show or during a break or whatnot. Seeing how long ago the Canadian fuel standard was introduced, or some enterprising kit would like to do that and put it in the chat. But he's presenting it like this new thing that's just been put in place, this new tax that Carney just I've taken away the carbon tax, but now you're paying the Canadian fuel standard. And oh, look, isn't it how convenient? It's 17 cents, just like the carbon tax. Boy, did I screw you. That's not at all what happened. And then she goes on, she says, but I have to insist that Canadian fuel standard existed before that. So, and it's like, and then again, but he didn't. And then again, another nervous laugh. Well, with these liberals, it's hard to keep track with all their taxes because he's got nothing. It's not a new tax. It's not a new tax. Right? And then he goes back again to that, it's that money printing and all that kind of stuff that makes things worse to Trudeau. That's nullified everything. It's like, there's no money printing. There's no money printing. The governor of the Bank of Canada was asked specifically about quantitative easing. He says, like, we are far ways from that. There is no money printing. And then, Rashi presents to him what the prime minister's been saying about this, and he just blows right past that. It says that he would have done something different, and by implication, that thing that he would have done different would have been so much better. And then he goes into his tired campaign line about hiring consultants and that they need to be cut. So he goes back to his rhetorical safety blanket and cutting foreign aid and fraudulent refugee claims, blaming the immigrants again, and corporate welfare, which, like, is there any party that's more the party of corporate welfare than the Conservative Party of Canada? I mean, seriously. So they're talking about us betting it all on pipelines right now. I can't believe this deficit. It's going to be absolutely terrible. But you guys want to build pipelines. You think that will not add to the deficit? You guys want us to negotiate from a position of strength. So that means you won't put the $9 billion into the military. You want to be able to get those critical mines, those critical minerals out. Okay, but you don't want the better ports to ship them to Europe? Like, what would you not spend on? Oh, we wouldn't spend on the consultants. Okay, so let's say we cut the consultants in half. Please do not cut the consultants in half. Do not cut people in half. I want to cut the budget for consultants in half, but don't cut the consultants in half, Pierre. That would not be bad. That would not be good. You're saying things are more reckless now. We got to make cuts to the public service. We need to cut the consultants in half. We need to go back to the pre-COVID era. So, okay, then, well, what would you say to the people in your riding, your previous riding, where there were a lot of public servants? Well, it's very difficult. But the Liberals' jobs crisis, oh, wow, that's the extent of the sympathy you get from Pierre. Well, it's very difficult. for you to make a decision to fire people or cut jobs that might not work out well for you? Is that what's very difficult, sir? Maybe. But that's the extent. He has nothing to say. He said, well, but it's very difficult. But that damn liberal job crisis, that's all he's got to say to the people. But I was honest about the fact I would cut public service. So he hardly mentioned it at all during the campaign. He mentioned it like a few months before that he wanted to do that. But I mean, conservatives always want to cut the public service. They hate the public service. They keep it. When the conservatives are the head of the public service, they're the most horrible boss people could ever have. They can't get anything done with the public service, but they always go in front of a mic and badmouth it and trash it, and then they expect performance from it. While they talk it down and bash it, and they know they can do it with impunity because the public service isn't allowed to talk back, not allowed to make political comments. They have to hope that their unions will do it. And then they go about and then they demonize the unions. So imagine you working for a boss who frequently goes in front of a camera and says that you're fat, you're lazy, you're bloated, we don't get value from money from you, we need to cut you, it's a waste of money spending money on you. How motivated are you to get the job done for these people? For those bosses? Look, we have one of the most competent and professional public services in the world. There's no reason for any politicians to be denigrating workers. The alleged party of workers. Every time it has a chance to denigrate the public service, it does. These are people without whom hardly any of us could get through a day if they weren't doing what they did and doing it competently and professionally well. But he never has anything positive to say about them, ever. Ever. Then says, well, we don't have the dollar figures. I can't tell you. Well, I got the dollar figures for you. You said 56, but I didn't break it down. But we did break it down. It's like, no, you didn't break it down. Your costing got you laughed out of the damn election. The costing in your platform was terrible. It says, how many people should lose their jobs? I'm talking about gains. How many gains we'll get? Just completely bypassing that. And again, like this, tries to correct them and then bulldozes over her by going back to all those rhetorical safety blankets. Like, if we just let people reinvest their capital gains in Canada, that would be so like this. I would like to see the math on that. How many capital gains do Canadians cash in every year? What's the $1 billion? How much is that? What's the amount of that in millions or billions? And if you were to not tax that and assume it would be if it was, it has to be reinvested in the economy according to this plan. So if that money was reinvested in the economy like this, and not taxed at the capital gains tax rate, how much additional income would it bring in? Would it generate really? And would that be enough to make it such that we wouldn't have to line up at food banks anymore like this, just like you said the carbon tax would, or and then again, ask him how many. Would it be this or this? Oh, well, it's a combination of the two. And by the end, he just, but you're asking the right questions. At least he didn't turn around and claim that CTV was a biased liberal media, because that would have had everybody in the studio laughing. Oh my word. Like I said, if you watch it from beginning to end, is right off the first question, right off the first answer, he starts bullshitting. And she starts countering him early. And what you saw there was after the point at which you started to the point at which we ended, was after 15 minutes of her doing this to him. And then she asks him the question that kills. Why should anybody believe you on the economy, given that everything you said about the carbon tax turned out to not be true? And given also that your platform of your election, the economic part, was complete trash, especially the costing. She was kind not to mention that part too. But when you put it together, he has no answers. I guess even intimating that we had to wait till the next platform to find out that no, Melissa Landsman already tried that. If you remember that Christmas time interview that we showed you, where Vashi Kapelas was asking her when we get to see the platform. She says, "Yeah, Canadians are entitled to know what the Conservatives had planned to do to them. I mean, for them. I mean, to them, because during the election, when we release the platform like this, at the last possible moment like this, and giving you all of 2 days to consider it. It's like, I could tell you now, so you would have months to consider it, research it, see if it's something that's good for you, but nah, you're not entitled to that. You're not entitled to that information in order to make an informed decision when you go to the polls. We'll just slip it to you 2 days before, after the early voting has already started. And then we'll just slip it to you like this. And, hope you don't ask too many questions or expect to get any answers because, we're busy campaigning. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, that's a party that's confident in their plan that really wants you to know what's in it because they got good stuff for you. Nothing in that plan's gonna screw you over. Nah, here, grandma, don't need to read this contract, just sign here. Yeah, we're gonna get you fluffier pillows. Meanwhile, your bank account's being drained. It's like, come on, man. These people are not serious. Not serious. No plan, no answers, and reverting back to his rhetorical safety blankets. Well, capital gains. And, oh, well, he's printing money. Oh, he's worse than Trudeau. I was like, but no plan, right? He didn't have a plan of his own. He didn't have a step-by-step process that he was going to take. He didn't have a financial analysis for us. He just has that the other guy is terrible and is doing all these terrible things. And I was right all along and I was demonized for it. And wait till the next election platform and you'll find out what we got for you. I am less than impressed. I ha I absolutely have to say, I am absolutely less than impressed. And the last little thing that I wanna mention to you today, is related because, I think, Pierre is in a bit of trouble. Could be in a bit of trouble here. Um, Pierre has a leadership review coming in January, and there's a lot of red meat being thrown to the base here. Pierre is clearly Pierre likes a sure thing, and Pierre really wants to make sure that he wins this leadership race. And there is some buzz, word on the tweet, that Pierre is not particularly well liked. Um, we've heard various stories about the tight grip that he had on his MPs with the rewards and sticks, and and if you um, lots of punishment, lots of being berated if you're not following the actual media line that's being put out. Um, we've heard, things about how nomination races have been run, and a lot of people not being too happy about that as well. Uh, and it would seem that um, east of Manitoba, there are a lot of people who are having trouble with him and don't particularly like them, and even more east of Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada. They are not happy with him. And there is an article that came out in the Hill Times today, and these are the types of articles came out yesterday. Sorry, that people should be paying attention to because this may be uh, explaining Pierre's behavior more than other things. This is by Abbas Rana of the Hill Times. Some federal conservative electoral district association presidents lashed out at party headquarters officials at a recent meeting for failing to hold fair nominations and for appointing between 80 to 90 candidates when the last election was called, say conservative sources. The exchanges took place at a September 11th virtual meeting held by the Conservative Party's National Council's Nomination Rules Committee to get feedback from riding presidents. The National Council set up a 7-member ad hoc committee on nomination rules back in June, which is headed by Ontario National Councillor Christina Mitas. Other members include Matthew Conway from Quebec, Aaron Shue from Ontario, Robert Boyd, British Columbia, Amber Ruddy, Alberta, Judy Manning, Newfoundland and Labrador, Tim Slyer, Northwest Territories, and Conservative MP Warren Steinley representing Regina Leuven, Saskatchewan. The caucus party liaison is a non-voting member of the committee, which is tasked to make recommendations about rules and procedures for the next election cycle. Currently, the committee is conducting virtual meetings with electoral association presidents across the country, region by region. In the invitation sent out to Ontario EDA presidents from the September 11th meeting, committee members said the discussions would be open, aimed at identifying what worked and what didn't in the nomination process during the most recent election cycle. The Nomination Rules Committee has begun our work in earnest. As part of this process, we are emailing to invite you to join a Zoom call with our committee, said the email sent out to Ontario EDA presidents and obtained by the Hill Times. The purpose of this call is to listen to your feedback on the recent nomination process in order to ensure our work is informed by the membership. Your experiences are exceptionally important in helping us to strengthen future nomination processes, and we hope you'll join us. This will be an open conversation where you can share your experience, highlight what worked well, and suggest areas for improvement. Midas told EDA presidents in the second phase of consultations that the committee would invite rank-and-file party members to submit their feedback in writing. At the start of the September 11th meeting, Midas outlined the meeting format, saying participants would discuss what went well, what did not, and offer suggestions for improvement. She set a 2-minute limit per speaker to ensure broad participation. When she asked EDA presidents to share positives from the nomination process, there was no reply. Let me repeat that. When she asked electoral district association presidents to share positives from the nomination process, there was no reply. But when she turned to what went wrong, the feedback came quick and abundantly. Several EDA presidents said their ridings had been ready for nomination contests for months, with candidates actively preparing and EDAs repeatedly asking the party to fix dates. Instead, no nomination votes were held, and the party ultimately appointed candidates. One president noted that they were told that 80 to 90 candidates were appointed just before or after the writ was issued, using a constitutional clause that allows the party to abridge the process in case of a snap election. But with the April 28th election, there was no emergency. These presidents argued that if the party intended to appoint candidates, riding associations should have been informed earlier, so potential candidates wouldn't waste months preparing and appointees could have been named well in advance to begin campaigning, introducing themselves and raising funds. And I'm sure they pissed off so many candidates that when comes time for the next federal election, they ask, hey, do you want to run? There's a lot of people that are going to say, no, I got burned the first time, you fuckers. A suburban Toronto EDA president pointed to Carleton, Ontario, where Liberal Bruce Fanjoy ultimately won the riding formerly held by Conservative leader Pierre Poliev after Fanjoy and his army of volunteers campaigned door-to-door from mid-2024 until Election Day. The president contrasted this with their own riding, which was excluded from the nomination process. One candidate who had sold 600 memberships was instead told to run in downtown Toronto, where Liberals dominate and Conservative chances were slim. They argued that fair nominations energize members, attract new signups, and boost fundraising, since a nominated candidate becomes the party's face in the riding. Some raised concerns over the party's use of the abridgment rule, which abruptly closed the application process without the standard 2-week notice, leaving potential candidates shut out. Riding president said that bypassing Democratic nominations at the riding level damages the morale of grassroots members. One riding president said that even if a fair nomination vote had been held in their riding, the party's preferred candidate would most likely have won, but appointing them outright has left a poor impression on both prospective candidates and the grassroots party base. The president added that they had written to the party president about the issue but have yet to receive a response. The election was in April. Another riding president said that the National Council can draft strong rules, but the real issue lies in how those rules are applied. They said that unless the party headquarters executes those rules in their letter and spirit, nothing will change. Some writing, presidents said that they were told by national councillors and regional organizers that the party lacked the resources to hold multiple nominations at once. The party has more money than God. I think the party has more money than all the other parties combined together and potentially double that. But they lacked resources to hold multiple nominations at once. What are you spending the money on? If it isn't shoring up the grassroots and making sure that you have full nomination processes that are really well attended and well staffed and well researched, what are you spending the money on? Seriously, your members need to start asking you some questions. Where's the money going? But they questioned why, after raising record sums in 2023 and 2024, the party didn't hire more staff to manage the process. According to a Conservative Party press release, the party raised $41.7 million in 2024 alone, but they didn't have the resources. It just goes to show how much of a priority you are. They raised $41 million, 41.7 in 2024 alone, and not couldn't, because they didn't have it, wouldn't, because they chose not to, spend those resources on making sure that the riding in which you live had the best nomination process possible to deliver the best quality candidate possible to be put on the ballot for you to have a great selection of choices in the federal election. They couldn't be bothered doing that work. They didn't think it was important. They didn't think you were important enough for them to do that work. They didn't think that them winning, they didn't think they needed to do that work. That's how much they took you for granted. Another president said that volunteers supporting different nomination candidates asked how a party that can't organize a nomination meeting could be expected to run a government and demanded accountability. Gee, can't organize a nomination meeting. This party can't even organize a clean leadership race. Seriously. All those mail-in ballots that everybody seemed to know were for Pierre. Then with the O'Toole, and then with the Sharon Bernier thing. It's like this, and this movement. I mean, Ontario Conservatives, the Conservative Party is not good at leadership nominations. There's stuff going on in British Columbia with the BC Conservatives that appears to be a shit show too at the moment. This is a party that can't do anything. Look, the federal party was born out of an act of betrayal, and then in the first election that they won, they eventually had to plead guilty in court to election finance cheating in order to save 4 of their own, including 2 sitting senators, from going to jail. This is not a party that has sound organization in its DNA in any way, shape, or form. Are you really surprised that the party at the riding level, the nomination processes are a mess? Gee, you should see how they run a leadership race. Another president, my God. At one point in the meeting, a president shared the story of the appointment of a candidate in their riding, the manner in which they were appointed to create the perception that the National Council had a preferred candidate. To dispel that impression, Manning, the Newfoundland National Councillor, clarified that while the National Council sets the rules, it is party headquarters that implements them. She said that although the National Council has a candidate selection committee, it plays no role in choosing who runs in specific ridings. She, however, did not acknowledge that all nomination decisions by the party headquarters must first be cleared with the party president and the elected National Council, which has the power to intervene if rules are not followed. Some potential candidates told the Hill Times before the election that they raised concerns with the national councillors about party officials violating the rules, but nothing was done. They now plan to hold these councillors accountable at the next meeting when they seek re-election at the January 2026 convention. The National Candidate Selection Committee is chaired by Kevin Pierce and the Vice Chair is Leona Alukak. Other members include Heather Feldbush, Matthew Conway, Manny Fallon, and Stuart Kiff. Conservative MP Steinley is the non-voting member of this committee. In every election cycle, both the Conservatives and Liberals face allegations of not following the nomination rules and of playing favorites. In the spring election, the Conservatives were expected to win a landslide majority of more than 220 seats. In the lead up to the April 28 vote, a Conservative nomination was seen by potential candidates as a guaranteed seat in the House, so an unusually high number of potential candidates were interested in seeking the party nomination. To improve their chances of getting the Conservative nomination, they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to show their fundraising prowess and signed up thousands of new members. In the end, most were disappointed because the party chose to either not follow the rules and play technicalities and the leverage they have in the rules to get their preferred candidates, or outrightly appointed the candidates at the last minute. In not for attribution based interviews, senior Conservatives involved in the decision making process told the Hill Times that their priority was securing winnable candidates, which meant the rules could not always be followed. They acknowledged that the last election cycle saw the most centralized nomination process in the party's history, but argued the stakes were high and they did not want to risk losing by leaving outcomes to chance. Quote, "You can have a fair nomination process or you can have the candidates you want," a senior Conservative told the Hill Times recently. Again, that's really telling. You can have a fair process or you can have the candidates you want. And here's the other thing that's absolutely frustrating about this is that the Conservatives wanted this election. They demanded it. They sought it. They kept on sought it out. They kept on holding non-confidence votes all the time to try to bring down the government, but they didn't have their nominees in place. And they didn't do the right thing by the nomination process in each of the ridings. They nominate people at the last minute. How can you be calling for an election for 2.5 years, staging non-confidence votes that, okay, I guess they were very confident that they would not win them when they staged them, and therefore they were PR exercises, because if they actually thought that they had a chance, they would have had their nominations in place to be able to go into an election. Of all the parties, the one party that should not have been stuck naming candidates at the last minute would have been the Conservative Party of Canada, given that they were the ones who were pushing for the election in the first place. For they so thought they had it in the bag, they didn't care. So yeah, you can have a fair nomination process or you can have the candidates you want, but you can't have both. Why? Because the candidates you want aren't strong enough to actually win a nomination process? And if that's the case, then why do you want those candidates? Must be because they bring something other than being someone that the constituents would find worthy of representing them, which is what it's supposed to be about. The election is supposed to be about the constituents, not about the party. The constituents are supposed to get the candidate they want, not the party. Senior Liberals echo that sentiment when unsuccessful. Potential candidates in their party questioned the fairness of nomination elections. The Liberals faced numerous similar allegations in 2015 when they were widely expected to win and did. Since then, unsuccessful Liberal hopefuls have from time to time publicly spoken up during general elections and by-elections that the party was not following its own rules. They faced very few complaints in the last election because up until this January, most expected the Liberals stand up in third or fourth place because of then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's unpopularity and Canadians' cost of living concerns. The political landscape changed dramatically after Trudeau's departure and the United States President Donald Trump's threats of tariffs and talk of making Canada the 51st state. Complaints of unfair nominations most often surface against the Conservatives and Liberals, as they are parties that have formed government. Meanwhile, Mitas did not reply to an interview request, but Sarah Fisher, communications director for the Conservative Party, sent a written statement to the Hill Times for this article. Yes, a written statement so that you can talk at people but not be questioned, because you're confident in your position. Quote, "After every election, National Council reviews our governance documents to ensure they meet the needs of the moment. Consequently, National Council struck an ad hoc subcommittee to review our candidate nomination rules to make sure that these rules are relevant and timely to the work ahead," wrote Fisher. "The committee is looking at a number of ways to streamline, improve, and refine our process, which is the most democratic by far." No writing presidents lifted up their hand when asked what went well. None. to streamline and improve and refine our process, which is the most democratic by far, to add to the wonderfully talented caucus we have after the next election. At this time, they are listening and speaking to many people, but certainly it is too early to outline specific improvements that will be made of the process. Although the Conservatives failed to form government on April 28th, they garnered 41.3% or nearly 8.1 million votes nationally, while the Liberals won 43.7% or 8.6 million votes. This was the best election result for the Conservatives since 1988. The party also increased its total vote count compared to the 2021 federal election when they received 33.7% or 5.7 million votes. In the current parliament, the Liberals have 169 seats, the Conservatives won 44, the Bloc Québécois 22, the NDP 7, and the Greens 1. In comparison, after the 2021 federal election, when the House had 338 seats, the Liberals won 160, the Conservatives won 19, the Bloc 32, NDP 25, and Greens 2. So there you go. So lots of drama going on behind the scenes here, Kits and Cups. And I notice here that I have been fuzzy, and I probably have been fuzzy for quite a while I was reading that. Oh, well, so sorry for that. Adjusted the camera now. But yeah, so yeah, when you have a leadership review coming up, and there's not one single electoral district association president in all of Ontario that has something positive to say about how nominations were run, you could be in trouble. Maybe that explains why the leadership race is set in Calgary in January. Because they don't want people from Ontario traveling. He is not liked. He is not well liked within his party. And given that he blew a 25-point lead and didn't bring him to the promised land and doesn't look like the inevitable next prime minister, he no longer has the things to keep MPs in line and quiet. We don't like what's going on, but we're going to win. So I'm not going to say anything. But now it doesn't look like that. And it really doesn't look like that. Again, Kits and Cups, might be too early, probably is too early to tell, to be honest. But according to aggregate polling, it would appear that if there was any bounce, post-by-election bounce for Pierre, it might already be over. Graph here. If you can look here, this is the Conservative line, and this is around election time. And you see Pierre gets a bump. But the last two polling cycles starting to go down. Liberals were coming back. There's a little bit of bump here. And if you look here in the seat projection, the Conservatives, which were down here, they came up here. You see slight little decline down to 132, and you see the Liberals who had arrived close to the majority or minority line. Last 2 weeks, numbers have been going up, and they're back in majority territory again. So it could be that already, because there's not enough data points, but if this particular last 2-week trend does develop, it would seem that the Conservative leader, the excitement about him returning with nothing new to offer, has already dissipated. And if the numbers go back even to where they were post-election, but in the summer months when Carney was really flying high and Pierre wasn't as visible and the party dropped, if they go back to that region by the time January comes along, might be very, very, very difficult for Pierre to get the number that he wants. And at the end of the interview, that's one of the things that Vashi Kapelas was asking Pierre. It's like, what's the magic number for your leadership race? He goes, well, I don't believe in magic. Okay, let me reframe the question. What is your number? I guess under which you would go. He says, well, I haven't determined it yet. Blah, 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 blah. It's like not particularly confident, are we, Pierre? And again, she did the how many thing a couple of times, and Pierre flubbed and stammered and tripped over himself, but didn't give a number. Yes, I guess maybe the recent experience of Bonnie Crombie, who, got 57%, and she said, "Well, yeah, I don't know, don't say I want to say what my number is, but that's enough." And then 3 hours later, she resigned, and Merritt Stiles over the weekend got 68%, and I also believe that that's not enough. And there's some clamoring, not enough, but there isn't as organized a machine as the New Leaf Liberals were within the NDP. But Merritt Stiles has determined that 68 for her was enough to stay. I'm not sure how much support that she has and whether or not that's a decision that will last. But I personally don't believe it's enough. My personal bias is always it has to be at least the three quarters. You're not going anywhere unless you have 75% of your membership. You might be able to make an exception for 73, 74 if someone's really, really popular or a good fundraiser. But yeah, you're not 60s, 50s. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. You have to be able to bring more of the membership with you. So we'll see what happens in that case. But Pierre might be a little reluctant to give a number because, well, I'm sure he knows that he's not particularly well liked. But again, we'll see what happens on that, kids and cubs. Just some interesting times here in Canada. All right, kids and cubs, that is it for this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please, please, please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And I see that the sun is coming in through the window, so maybe tennis this morning there will be after all. Ooh, keep your fingers crossed for me, kids and cubs. Please do. I really appreciate it when you share our content and when you include a little bit of yourself there and let people know why it is that it resonated with you because you are leaders and influencers in your own circles. And we appreciate the help. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like us to help you because sometimes you're too busy to watch the show, well, either live with the DAMFAM or at your own convenience, and you need another way to stay in touch with what's going on in the world. Well, don't worry. We've got you covered. Thanks to the Ray Girl. Well, we have something called Podpage. That's podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words, or you can scan that QR code that has just appeared. And when you go there and click subscribe, our show is available in podcast format for you so that you can download us and then just take us with you because we're lightweight and portable. And therefore, we will not weigh you down. That way, you can pop us in your ears and you can get your latest news and take on the day. It's a win-win. All right. Now, if you would like to help us, kids and cubs, you can do that by making your way on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where our kits, Cassie and Elaine, will be beckoning you to play with our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. I'm still seeing 24,900 on my screen, so we didn't flip to 25,000 during the show. But maybe sometime later today. You never know. Keep on watching it like the odometer on the car. See, wait for it to flip. Kids and cubs, please go there, like, share, and subscribe. Click on our buttons. It helps us with the algorithm, and it makes us very happy when you do. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in another way, we would be very, very grateful if you would like to help us with the costs that we incur to bring this show to you, kids and cubs. If things keep on going currently as they're going now, we are on track, definitely, to break even this year, which would be really, really nice. And that would be thanks to you and your support. And we would be quite delighted if that was the case this year. So if you would like to help us, kids and cubs, you would need to go to our coffee page. That's ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. Or you can use this QR code here. that just appeared at the top of the screen. And that will bring you there. And there you can drop a couple of loonies or toonies into the jar that we call the Emergency Hydration Fund. And therefore, you can do your bit to keep your favorite beaver moist. Mm. Yum, 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 yum. Isn't that wonderful? So please do keep your beaver moist, because a moist beaver is a very happy beaver. And we would like to say thank you to Kit Hugh, who made a very enthusiastic expression of encouragement for our show following our interview with Olga. It appears that he did very much appreciate it, and it is reflected. So thank you, mon frère. It definitely helps a lot, and we are very, very grateful to you for your support, your continued support of the show for over a sustained amount of time. Thank you, my friend. All right, kits and cubs, because democracy is something that you do. Hey, elections in Newfoundland and Labrador, please find out what is going on over there. And if you have some candidates that you prefer, that would be great. I think we're coming close to the deadline for all the parties to have their candidates nominated. If I remember correctly, that was the 23rd. So find out who your candidates are. If there's one that you support, phone bank, volunteer, all that kind of stuff, or call Elections Newfoundland and Labrador and see if there is a manner in which you can help at a polling station. The vote is on October 14th, sorry. So coming very closely now, just 22 days away. So it's a short amount of time to ponder your decision, but make sure that you do and that you plan your vote, because friends do not let friends do democracy alone. Also, if you live in Alberta, www.forever-canadian.ca is where you go to for if you want to support this, getting on this. Sorry, let's try that again. If you want to support getting a question that is keeping Alberta within Canada, a citizens' initiative ballot for a referendum, 294,000 signatures, and probably a little more are required to do that, and all the signatures have to be done in front of a person. So you need to go to one of the pop-up stations. If you're mobility impaired, to take a check-in with the organization to see if they have a team to come to you. If you want to become a canvasser to help collect signatures, you can do that as well by going to that site. And you can also make a donation, because when you're running an operation that big, sometimes you need a couple of funds to try and keep things going. So kits and cubs, any way that you can help if you are in Alberta, please sign. It is very, very, very important that you do, and we very much appreciate that you have. And then, of course, always remember, kits and cubs, the petition is still out there to try to keep our politicians a little more honest. We are now at over 20,000 signatures, so almost double from the time. Well, we're just over 20,000, actually 20,100. So, but almost double what it was when we started talking about this. I think it was last week. So, kits and cubs, I am going to put it in the chat. But remember, if you're listening, go to ourcommons.ca and look for petition E-6679 on ethical issues, which is a petition, as I mentioned before, to try and encourage our elected members of parliament to be more honest and to have consequences for them in the case that they are not. Okay, words of wisdom, kits and cubs. Keep on praying for the sunshine. Sometimes it might come your way. Just, like, optimism sometimes is a good thing. It can help you. All right. Kids, it can be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, at the count of 3, if I may hear you, kids and cubs, say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock, and I'll be back with you soon after. On 1, 2, 3. Oh, kids and cubs. Oh, that is so delightful. Of course, I will do that for you. Coming right up. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. Hey, and we've got a little bit of news about Canadians who make us proud. Number one, the Toronto Blue Jays will be in the playoffs. They had a victory against the Kansas City Royals, I believe it was last night, and that clinched it for them. That's after going on a little bit of a skid there near the end. And I think a couple of days ago they had a game against the Royals that they lost 20-1. Whew, that was quite of a blowout. But they recuperated, and yes, the Jays are in the playoffs. I think it's been a while, the first time in a while. So, well, no, maybe not the first time in a while. I don't know when the last time they were in the playoffs, actually. Huh. I'd have to, I'd have to remember that, but for some reason, I think it's been a while. I know that they've been close a couple of times, but yeah, let's. I'm on the bandwagon. I am cheering, hoping for things to go well. Still some games left in the regular season though before we get there, but they have definitely clinched their spot into the playoffs, and now it's to see whether or not they will secure the division, the championship of their division. Also, Kids and Cubs, the World Athletics Championships are over, and Canada finished with 5 medals, 3 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze. And that, in terms of the standings, the gold, the table, if you put gold medals first, made Canada actually finish in third place at the championships. Total medals a little lower than that, maybe fifth or sixth or something. But yeah, so we had the 3 gold that we mentioned before for Evan Dunphy in the 35-kilometer race walk, and then for Cameron Rogers and Ethan Katzberg in the hammer throw, respectively, women and men's. And then Marco Arup collected the bronze in the men's 800 meter, I believe it is, race, and which was an achievement because he was feeling that he didn't have it in him, but he did manage to make it happen. And then our 4x100 men's relay weight race competed, and the 4 men there, it was raining. So was a bit of a wet track, not to the best conditions, but the our quartet won the silver medal uh, at the World Championships, which is a great achievement as well. Andre DeGrasse, Brent Rodney, Jerome Blake, and Aaron Brown, which is the name I had forgotten when I was talking about the people that qualified to the semifinals in the 200 meters. I am sorry, Mr. Brown. They won the silver at the World Athletics Championships on Sunday with a season's best time of 37:55. The United States struck gold, 37:29, to defend the world title, and the Netherlands at 37:81 grabbed bronze. There had been some chatting, and the Jamaicans didn't make the final because they had a baton exchange go wrong in a previous round. Um, there was some talk from the members about that this might be the last time they were running together ever, but it seems that after this result there is some talk that they will be staying together till LA 2028 and see if they can make another go at it. uh, but yeah, Aaron Brown um, and Rodney. Oh, sorry, trying to remember his first name off the top of my head. I'm so terrible with this. Brendan Rodney will be 35 at the next World Championships in 2027. So getting to 36 at the Olympics, with DeGrasse to turn 33 later that year and Blake 32. But yeah. The consistency and the be able to meet the moment is really spectacular for this team. And the Canadians 4x100 women's team finished seventh, so made the finals for the second year in the second Worlds in a row, I believe. And last time they had finished eighth, so that is an extra step up, and that team is doing better as well. And also, Evan Dunphy unfortunately had to pull out of the 20-kilometer race walk because it seems that moment near the end of the 35-kilometer race where it looked like he was seizing up, turns out was a pretty severe hamstring tear. So he needs to heal that. Besides, he's got other things to worry about now. He's getting married. There's a honeymoon coming. He's looking at maybe buying a house, right? So, other life challenges. So heal up, Evan. Definitely, you left it all on the course when you raced in that 35 to have walked the potential last 2 kilometers with a major hamstring pull and still complete the race and win gold. Again, our athletes, they give a lot. And unfortunately, Damian Warner also had to pull out of the decathlon, and Pierce Lepage had to drop out after four events. He did not start in the 400-meter race, which was the last event on day one. So unfortunately, the medal potential there did not materialize. At the World Cup of Rugby, Team Canada had a spectacular performance, defeating the Black Ferns from New Zealand in a very convincing fashion. It was never in doubt. I think Canada scored the first three tries of the match and just never looked back. Very explosive and physical game where Canada really used its superior speed and agility in order to secure this very historic win. The Black Ferns were three-time defending world champions. So it will be Canada against England, which will be the first time they meet in the final. The first time Canada makes the final of the World Cup since 2014, where they lost to England then. It might be a much more competitive match this time around, and I wouldn't put it past the Canadian women to being able to take it all, because they are playing like they've got fire lit under them. For the men, Canada lost to Tonga in the bronze medal match at the Pacific Cup and ended up taking fourth place. At the World Volleyball Championships, Canada did qualify for the playoff round, but faced a much stronger Polish team and lost 3-1 and had to bow out in the round of 16. Also, congratulations to tennis player Felix Auger-Aliassime, who did get married over the course of the weekend, and to his longtime girlfriend, Nina Gaby, and they got married in an intimate ceremony on Saturday. So many, many, many happy and well wishes to the happy couple. Maybe that explains why Felix was not available to play at the Davis Cup. Like, rehearsal dinners, all that kind of stuff coming up for a big wedding. And also in the news, Brad Gushue, a noted Canadian champion curler, has announced that this will be his last season playing competitive curling foursome, trying to win the Scotties, which I believe is set. Is it set for St. John's this year? Not the Scotties. The Scotties is the tournament. The Briar. I think the Briar might be slated for Newfoundland and Labrador this year. I could be wrong on that. No, it's not. It's in Kelowna, British Columbia. And this is, of course, the last year. There'll be the Roar of the Rings to qualify to represent Canada at the Olympics, because the next Winter Olympics are coming in a few months. So he wants to have another crack at it. And after that, we'll be retiring. It'll be very weird to watch curling without Brad on our screens. He's been a mainstay for quite a long time. And last but not least, Canada's newly minted World Championship bronze medalist in badminton, Victor Lai, was playing at the Indonesia Masters and got all the way to the semifinal before bowing out in that one. So having a good tournament after to follow up the Worlds. And that's all I got for you today in Canadians Who Make Us Proud. All right, kids and cubs, I am off, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Like magic, I am gone. Bye-bye.